in our weekly feature with the Department of Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation. We're today profiling the board of the Rand Water Board, and we're looking at her being one of the few chairpersons in a male-dominated sector. Adv Hashatse is the board chairperson of the Rand Water Board, and joins me now. Good morning, and thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Kathy, and good morning to the listeners.
Sure. I mean, it's already talked about the fact that your position as a female in this industry is the exception and not the rule. What has that practically meant for you?
Well, Kathy, I don't have a problem with being a woman, so I don't go around carrying it as baggage for myself. I understand and know that other people may have that problem. I make it their problem to deal with and their issue to resolve. I just go about doing the work that I've been assigned to do to the best of my ability, and making sure that I win respect by displaying the fact that I'm deserving of holding that position, that I'm fully qualified for holding such a position, and I have the requisite knowledge, the diligence, and the value system for someone to be entrusted with such a task.
You've spent quite a number of years as part of the board at Rand Water. Speak to us a bit about that history.
Yes, I am on my third term of appointment on the board of Rand Water, and that, according to law, means this is my last term. After that, I have to retire my directorship of the board because, quite correctly, there is a limitation to the number of terms for which you can be appointed. I did not start off as the board chair. I started off as an ordinary member of the board in the first term. And then the person who was the chairperson at the time, they had served their maximum number of terms and they retired as chair. And then when the next cycle of assessment and appointment of constituting a new board, to my surprise, I was then reappointed, not only reappointed to the board, but also made the board chair by the minister at the time.
So, having been part of the entity for such a long time, and you look at the challenges and the difficulties when it comes to the provision of water for many communities, how would you say you have fared in trying to respond to those challenges?
Well, the problem, I think, one of the issues that we're faced with in the water sector is that the chain of responsibilities is broken, Kathy. We have responsibilities that belong to the Department of Human Settlements and Water, as it is now called. Previously it had different configuration. So you have the department that is the overall custodian of water through the department and the minister, that also plays the regulatory body, responsibilities for regulating the sector. And then you have water boards that are like your bulk supplier. So they're like at, a bulk services level. They get the raw water from the dams that are under the Department of Water and Sanitation, and then they purify the water in their systems and in the water treatment plants. And once that water has been treated to the quality level where it is suitable and meets all the health standards for utilization and for drinking and cooking and all the other uses, then that water is sold to municipalities. And municipalities are at a retail level. They reticulate the water to actual households. So when you open your tap at your house or in your office, you're likely being supplied by a municipality or a municipal entity like Joburg Water, for instance. And that's what I mean about the system is complex, and therefore there are different parties that hold different responsibilities, and sometimes that coherence is broken. So while I can say that Rand Water has acquitted itself well in terms of the work that we do, our part of the value chain, in that we have maintained our systems and our infrastructure. We have had a reliable supply of water. Our customers do not go for long periods of time being shut off because our system is down. We don't have those kinds of issues. Our water continues to meet the best health and safety standards. So you can drink it straight from the tap. There are parts where the system does break down. There are parts where the responsibilities are not fully met. And there are parts where there's also the interplay between water and sanitation. So there's pollution in other parts of the country, and that's because the sanitation systems are not maintained properly, or they're overflowing, they're overburdened. There hasn't been augmentation of infrastructure for a long time. At Rand Water, we pride ourselves on the fact that we've both maintained our system well and to the best of our abilities. And it's an old system. Rand Water is an old organization. It's over 115 years old. And the other thing that we have done is that we have used the money that is generated by the business of Rand Water, which is selling the water to municipalities and to some of our direct customers who do, have industrial customers and mining customers that we supply directly. We use that money to plow back into the system. So when there is growth, and new areas developing, we need to be able to continue to supply so that we don't overburden the system and have the system unable to cope. So we are quite, mindful of our responsibility and the stewardship that we have over this organization, and about the importance of water to the economy, to life, to health, to everything, in fact.
Now, one of the challenges, of course, that you face is one around sustainability, because water boards generally seem to be facing a shrinking revenue base.
That's correct. That is correct. I mean, especially that is a growing problem. Even with Rand Water, we try and manage the issue of debt very carefully. But we have found over the last 4 years that this problem has really quadrupled. If you look at the figures, there used to be a time where, we were talking about municipalities owe us in overdue accounts. We are owed 200 million or something like that, which is a lot of money. But we are now at a point where we are talking overdue accounts that are sitting at over 2 billion. And that is a problem that, we are constantly addressing. If there's anything that gives us sleepless nights, it is that problem. Because if we don't turn that situation around, and of course COVID has compounded the situation, where we're finding that even those of our customers that were most reliable and most disciplined about servicing their accounts are also coming under strain. So we're having to have discussions about how we can assist each other through this period to make sure that it doesn't lead to the collapse of Rand Water. If you like, Rand Water is like the ESCOM of water, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that it remains sustainable. Otherwise, we're going to have great difficulty in the future. And also, if Rand Water is not receiving all the money that it requires, recouping all the costs of doing business, what we're really doing is that we would be postponing a problem. And years from now, we would be sitting at very expensive water because, we haven't been able to progressively recoup the cost. The cost will come at some point.
Who are the biggest offenders when it comes to this 2 billion rand bill that is outstanding?
Well, I think one of them is quite well known in the public domain, that we have had serious problems with, for instance, with Mfuleni. And that continues to be a struggle. We have also had, challenges in some of the municipalities, like when we were supplying Bushbuck-rich water. That was a difficult client to service in terms of our ability to collect. And the rest of it is, at the moment, is made up of a number. Some of them are not that far behind. Those for whom this is a new problem, we're talking about the last month or two. But there are others where there are problems and they are overdue. When you get your statement and it's red, you're either in the 30 days, 60 days, 180 days. There are those that sit there. But the biggest by far is Mfuleni.
Recently, the issue of water boards has, of course, become part of the national conversation, and you would have seen some of the allegations that have been published about, especially when it comes to alleged political interference, when it comes to the constituting of these water boards. Talk to me about that level of things, because you've been with Rand Water for a long time, and you're one of the few entities to receive clean audits, so you seem to relatively be able to have kept your house in order. Is there political interference that takes place, especially in the context of these municipalities who you need to get money from, but they're simply not paying? How are these dynamics managed?
Well, first of all, to deal with the issue of municipalities and not paying, especially in the recent past, we're not talking about a lack of willingness to pay. We're talking about circumstances that have hit everyone in terms of their ability to service their accounts. So, for instance, if a municipality that used to be a good payer before comes to us and opens their books, and many have done that, and says, look, we used to be able to collect so much. First of all, with shutdown, their major customers may have been in shutdown mode as well, industrial customers, let's say, manufacturing and so on. So they were not utilizing water, and therefore they don't have a bill to pay for water, so the municipality is not collecting for water. But also we have had increased usage in domestic and other spaces because we're all washing our hands every 20 minutes. So it's a mixture of things. So, for instance, we would have the assistance in Gauteng, for instance, of the Gauteng Treasury and the Gauteng Cocta Department, MEC Maile, convening all of us in a room and saying, so, great, what are we going to do? This is the problem. Let's state the problem. Let's talk about how we can help to make sure that the situation does not deteriorate further. So it is really about getting into a room and talking about it as a collective. So MEC Maile, for instance, would convene with all the mayors and the technical people of the different municipalities and Rand Water in the room and talk about the principles about how we're going to do it. And then at a more detailed level, then Rand Water's management would sit with affected municipalities' own management and talk about changing perhaps the credit management terms, changing the terms of payment, changing the period of payment. Say, for instance, the municipality says, look, I can no longer pay you within 30 days because I'm not collecting that quickly. Can you give me 45 days? So we've had those types of conversations and relief, and we trust that those will then allow us to turn the situation around. And then there are municipalities, of course, where if the whole system has collapsed, if their financial system has collapsed, if they are not collecting money or if they are not utilizing money for the right purposes, then you lose the hope in terms of your ability to be able to collect from there. So that's another reality to deal with. But that, by and far, is not what our major customers are looking like at the moment. And then on the other part of your question, Kathy, when it comes to the constitution of boards, I think that the big thing with Rand Water, with the cycles that I have, the recent appointment of the Rand Water Board was in 2018, is that it's supposed to be an open and transparent and competitive process. It gets advertised in the newspapers. people who are interested get nominated, and your CVs and your reputations and your applications go into the hat, and a committee is constituted that must look at who are the best candidates. And even us returning board members, you get interviewed. You get put through the ringer, and you get asked questions, and then you don't know. You await the outcome, because then that committee must report to the minister, and the minister must do what the minister must do in terms of constituting a board. So I would want to believe and trust, because then I'm hands off in that process as an interested party who has also been nominated again, and I wait for the outcome, and I don't use my position or influence to abuse that process or to meddle in that process. And as for other kinds of interference at Randwater, as a person who carries great legal and fiduciary responsibility for an organization, it's a legal duty to be a director of an entity, and it's a great responsibility. And if you are there to do the right things, and you have the right ethical and moral compass, and you don't peddle influence, and you don't abuse your own power, then I believe you don't open yourself up to any kind of conversation that is about doing the wrong things. So people have to know what they know you for, I believe. So if you're open to discussions, I mean, you have to exercise your responsibility and exercise it with diligence and with rigor. And you have to be brutally honest with your colleagues on the board and with management, and you have to take each other to task, and you have to keep each other honest, and you have to discharge your responsibility over oversight. So if you're not the kind of board member who on the side says to the CE, what about the tender? What can I get? Then, everybody knows you're not about those conversations, and I believe they don't come to you, to discuss such things. I have been quite protective of my own personal value system about not participating in discussions such as those, and not opening myself up to those kind of discussions, and stopping it right off the bat. And I would like to believe that protects you from people who want to have those discussions, because they seem to know who they must have those conversations with and who they mustn't. And then as a collective, also, if you're not doing that with each other, then you all know that you're keeping each other honest, and you're keeping each other on the right path. And I would want to hope and believe that our team is doing its best on that. You can never say for sure. So obviously someone is hiding and doing something, and then you have to, your responsibility as a director and as a board is to make sure that you have the best systems you can have for control and for assurance. So your internal audit, your forensic unit internally, your fraud hotline, and you have to be serious about such things. You have to serve the message from the top, and you have to be know that it is possible that if I have information about Randwater and about things going wrong at Randwater, if I go to the chairperson, I know that the chairperson is not interested in that, is not implicated, and that thing will receive the right kind of investigation, and the matter will be dealt with. So, we do, for instance, our forensic unit does do lifestyle audits on our senior management. We rotate that, and on people that are involved in our procurement processes. So you set up the best systems you can, and you rely on those systems, and you rely on internal and external audits, and you set a right ethical tone message from the top. And when you do have incidences of transgression, if you deal with them and you send the message that they will not be tolerated, I'd like to believe that it's some of the things that you can do.
Sure. We've got a couple of our listeners that have sent in voice notes for you, so I'm just going to ask you to listen out to these.
Okay.
Good morning, Kathy. This is Will from KZN. My view is that The Rand Water Board is not getting its revenue because the officials from the municipalities are stealing the money. So what the government needs to do is to investigate these officials, and if they find them guilty, is to fire them and get rid of them, because water is a basic need and all our people need it. Thank you.
Kathy and your listeners and your guest in studio, the chairperson. Look, it is surprising that Mfuleni is the municipality that is owing the West. To think that Renault in Gauteng, their biggest plant, that is supplying the whole of Gauteng, it is based right in that municipality in the south of Vereeniging, and they happen to be the ones that are not paying. It just show you about the culture, of incompetence in that municipality of my hometown, Mfuleni. It's sad.
Right. Tsidi, do you want to respond to part of the comments that the listeners were raising there?
No, I mean, I think largely one would agree that whatever failures exist at whatever level, at municipal level, at a water board level or whatever, we need to address problems. We need to face problems head on and deal with them. Otherwise, the challenges are only going to grow. So that the caller from KZN who's talking about addressing problems, I do agree that if we don't go to the root causes of the problems, then we will not fully address them. So if a municipality is the problem of not paying a water board is because the municipality is being mismanaged, then you will not solve the problem of the water board until you deal with whatever challenges are existing in that municipality.
All right. Well, let me thank you so much for coming on and for having this conversation, Adv Hashatse. And she is the chair of the Rand Water Board. Certainly a lot of insightful information that has come out of this particular interview. And of course, this conversation was brought to you by the Department of Water, Sanitation and Human Settlements.